98% of the net proceeds to mom or dad. They get that money. And now it's in their name, and they're well over that $2,000 mark. Hi, this is Jeff Marsanchi, the Plain English Attorney, and welcome to the video. Today, we're going to talk about something that ends up popping up frequently during the Medicaid planning process, but not usually right at the start. Usually it's months or even a couple of years later. Down the road, we're still in the process. And then, wait a minute, we want to sell the house. Can we do that? It depends. Now, we're going to cover two main techniques, but first I'm going to throw in a story of how it did not go well. We ended up with mom and dad. They needed care, and it was going to be mom more than dad. So what they did was we were going to take their money, buy into their son and daughter-in-law's house so that they would have the primary residence. The four of them were going to be on the deed, and it would end up being joint with the right of survivorship. So essentially, mom and dad were going to take their money to buy it. The son and the daughter-in-law were going to take that money, which was now theirs, and put it into one of the Medicaid planning trusts that we put together so that it was kind of protected. It was still morally, they're looking at it as mom and dad's money, even though actually it had gone to the son and daughter-in-law. And that would have satisfied the requirements for assets because they're allowed to have a residence. And they didn't have one, they just had the cash. Okay, great. So what happened? Well, mom ended up passing on, but dad's situation started getting worse. They were going to, fix up a little bit in the residence so dad could live there. It was near the facility where mom was going to go. But then dad ended up needing the care soon after mom died. We had already had the planning process in place, so we just kind of retooled it so that it was just now dad's case. It was now dad's money, and they bought into the son and daughter-in-law's house. Well, I'm going to say not several months, but almost a year goes by. Everything's on track. He's going to need care. And rather than contacting us like they were supposed to, the social worker at the facility said, "Oh, we'll do the Medicaid application." They specifically signed off that they weren't going to do that. They needed to come back to us because we knew what the plan was. And so they submitted the application saying, yeah, there was all of dad's money was in this trust that he put in there less than a year ago, and Medicaid went absolutely crazy and, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And so they ended up finally they contacted us because the Medicaid application was rejected, and they said, Medicaid said the trust was wrong. You screwed up. What are you talking about? You sent in an application and you didn't call us? All right. So that got straightened out once we actually explained what happened. They shouldn't have had to see the trusts at all because it wasn't any of dad's money, remember? It was the son and daughter-in-law that put it into the trust, so there was no gifting. Oh, okay. That gets straightened out. And then less than a month after that was straightened out, only a few days after talking with us and not mentioning anything else, son and daughter-in-law put the house up for sale and sell it. And then they moved to Florida, and Medicaid went absolutely crazy, as they should, because the way this was set up, something like 90% or more of the house was owned by dad. So 90% or more of those sales proceeds were dad's assets, now liquid, and would have to be spent on his care. They just took off for another state. Well, we got a great deal on the house. We couldn't pass that up. Oh, yeah, you could have. What ended up happening there, then they ended up with a warrant. I think they were at least threatening a warrant for dad's arrest because using his power of attorney, he diverted all of those funds into his account, saying, well, it's my house. Okay. So as you can see, even with less than a year past getting all of this set up, executed, and done, they forgot that we told them, no, you're filtering this money through the house. Dad owns part of the house. You can't sell the house without the proceeds. I think he remembered that. I think he didn't like that I would have told him, no, you can't do that. And he really wanted to sell the house and move to another state. And so we went and did it. Well, whatever. We'll let the attorney deal with it. We couldn't. There was nothing we could do at that point. So it ended up becoming this big disaster that I don't know if it got settled or not, because son and daughter-in-law left the state. So this is a video about selling a house during the Medicaid planning process. So this is going to be a little technical. However, if you are in this process with me or an attorney or a certified Medicaid planner who's using the same, quote, two-trust solution, this is going to be valuable information. And in fact, part of what we're going to be doing is setting up a kind of community with automatic reminders so that videos like this will keep going to the people who are doing the planning as well as the trustees and the family members, and they'll have access to it. So they'll see this video periodically. Hey, okay, we're going to stay on track, because sometimes it's put the assets in the trust. 5 years later, we can apply. Check-ins once a year, but these questions come up much more frequently than that. So what's the two-trust solution? Now, this is just part of the toolbox. It's the two main irrevocable trusts that we set up. There's the irrevocable property trust and the irrevocable family trust. So when we put the real estate into the irrevocable property trust, and we're starting the 5-year clock for this one. So this isn't the purchase in and there's immediate qualification. It's no, we're taking it and we're moving it into that trust, and we start the 5-year clock for Medicaid. Medicaid looks at it as a gift. All right. All gifts within the past 5 years count. So you don't apply until after that 5-year mark. If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel. So that's where the real estate goes, and the irrevocable family trust is where you put the money. So if you have 3 properties and $1 million in liquid assets, and what you're going to do is move all 3 properties into the irrevocable property trust and maybe move $900,000 or $950,000 into the irrevocable family trust. Then 5 years later, if you still have exactly $50,000, you may have to spend down $48,000 somewhere along the way, but you've preserved all that stuff after that 5-year mark. That's the main 2 trusts that we end up using, and there are several more for different specific purposes, but this is where we're going to end up with this discussion. So what happens now with these 2 main techniques? The first one is just what we talked about. You take it, move the real estate into the irrevocable property trust. The 5-year clock starts. It's done. The transfer point is set. And now, if it becomes desirable to sell the house or really any real estate out of that irrevocable property trust during that 5-year point or after, then it can be sold. Now, here's the thing. It's not being sold by mom or dad. It's being sold by the trustee. Where's the money going? Back into the trust. It doesn't go to mom or dad because they already gave up their rights to that house, except for what they kept through the trust, which is to live on the property and any income generated. So it gets sold, the money comes back into the irrevocable property trust, and now the way we have it set up, one of two things is going to happen. It can be reinvested in other property, or the money gets shifted over to the family trust. That's the way we set it up and designed the system to work. But it doesn't do anything to that 5-year clock. And the money does not go to mom or dad. So we're fine. It's not going to interrupt anything. You can take that money, sell one house, take the money back into the trust, purchase another piece of real estate with that money into the trust. A couple of years later, sell that again out and purchase another one. This can happen on an ongoing basis. The point is the money never goes back into mom or dad's pocket. So there's no issues with Medicaid. Now, there is another technique that we end up using that does not involve the 5-year clock. And this is that situation I mentioned at the very beginning. Parent to parents, they don't have a primary residence, but they have the excess cash. They've got a child who has a house. They're selling part of the house. It can be, up to 99%, or, technically it could even be more, but we kind of set that ceiling at 99%, or if it's owned by a child and their spouse, 98%. And it just kind of filters that money through because they're allowed to have a primary residence, but they're not allowed to have too much money. We filtered the money through the house, and then in that first story, take the money and move it into the irrevocable family trust. Okay, so the money's there. Mom or dad owns or both own a chunk of that real estate. But now the question comes up, what if we want to sell? All right. Well, this is now a situation where if it's son and daughter-in-law each own 1%, dad owns 98%, and the house is sold, the proceeds from the sale of the house should be 1% of the proceeds, net proceeds to the son, 1% of the net proceeds to the daughter-in-law, 98% of the net proceeds to mom or dad. They get that money. And now it's in their name, and they're well over that $2,000 mark. It can't be done. You just should not do it. So, again, this is a situation that comes up. We get, hey, look, we can do this. Here's a technique. We can move the money in. Well, what if we want to sell the house? You can't sell the house. You can't. If you do, then all the money goes back to mom or dad, and now we've got a problem with Medicaid. Oh, okay. Get everything done, and then a year later or 2 years later, hey, we're getting a great offer on the house. We want to sell it. You can't. What do you mean we can't? No, you can't. And it's because that ownership is there for the person who's receiving Medicaid or the spouse or both. And now it's gonna throw Medicaid off because now there are available countable assets that can be used to pay for their own care. You can't do it. You can't do it. So this is one drawback of it, but on the other side, currently when I'm recording this, the national average cost of nursing home care for a private room is $10,000 a month. So you're balancing that and that happening immediately and preserving the money that went through the house via the family trust Now, you're giving up that right to be able to sell that house until mom or dad has passed on. Now, the benefit, well, it's not the benefit. The fact that there's no net loss to the son and daughter-in-law in this example, or the daughter and son-in-law in other examples, or whatever the couples are, they get the house back as joint with the right of survivorship. Now, let me be clear, because this is a point that could come up. I don't want anyone to take this as very specific legal advice, because these rules vary from state to state. This joint with a right of survivorship thing and filtering the money thing, that works in North Carolina and some other states. It does not work in all states. It does not work. But in this case, it would have worked in that very first example had they just kept the house. Son and daughter-in-law would have gotten the money back. They would have gotten the house back. The money was in the trust. When dad passes on, that money gets distributed. I guess it was the son, and there was another sibling that he had that was going to end up getting the other half. It all would have been fine. But they can't sell the house. So that's the drawback. So a lot of Medicaid planning is pros and cons, and well, you're giving up one thing for another. But that's the way it is. If you've got that house that was purchased that way through that contract, you can't sell it while mom or dad is still alive, because then they get the proceeds. All right, so I hope you found that information useful. We do have an actual course on Medicaid planning, the Medicaid crash course. We'll put a link in the description below. As I always tell my clients, please stay safe, plan ahead, and enjoy life. And whatever you do, make it a great day.